Hi, my name is Tom Fitz. I'm a software developer at IBM TRIRIGA. This T-Tech Go session will be covering two new features in TRIRIGA Application Platform 3.5 called Object Label Manager and Object Label Revisioning. Today's agenda will first cover aspects of object labeling, so an introduction to Object Label Manager, accessing Object Label Manager, TRIRIGA delivered object labels, object label definitions, creating a new object label, viewing objects that belong to an object label, applying an object label to modified objects, comparing objects with Object Label Manager, deleting an object labels in object migration, and then we'll go over some important information regarding object labels and Object Label Manager. The second part of the presentation will focus on object revisioning. So we'll give an introduction to object revisioning, what objects are revisioned, how are objects revisioned, when are objects revisioned. We'll go over revision numbers, revision lists, revision comparisons, comparison of UX metadata, and we'll go over some comparison enhancements, and I will show you a slide that has some valuable references. So Object Label Manager. The groundwork for object labeling was introduced in Application Platform 3.5.0. The purpose of object labels is to help customers identify objects that change from release to release by putting identifiers on all objects detailing what TRIRIGA release they were last modified on and if they have been modified by the customer. The goal is to eliminate the need to rename TRIRIGA delivered objects if a customer needs to modify them. Object Label Manager is a tool designed to control all aspects of managing object labels. TRIRIGA uses object labels to identify the release of the object that it was last modified on. Customers use object label to identify changes made to TRIRIGA delivered objects as well as their own objects. The capabilities of Object Label Manager allow you to view all objects that belong to a particular object label. It allows you to apply a label to modified or new objects. You can compare objects between different object labels. You can also modify object labels and delete object labels that are not needed. Please note that this session covers new features to object labeling. Please see the Application Platform 3.5.0 T-Tech Go session on object labeling for a complete introductory overview of object labels. Use the link at the bottom of this slide to access that session. Accessing Object Label Manager. For environments that are on TRIRIGA application version 10.5.1, you can access the Object Label Manager from TRIRIGA by navigating to Tools, System Setup, System, and clicking the Object Label Manager link. If you have Platform 3.5.1 without TRIRIGA application version 10.5.1, you will need to go to Navigation Builder and place the navigation item called Master Detail Object Label Manager into the desired navigation collection. Here's a quick overview of the object labels that IBM TRIRIGA delivers with the application platform. So IBM-T:10.5.0, this is the object label given to objects delivered in TRIRIGA 10.5.0. IBM-T:10.5.1, this is the object label given to objects delivered in TRIRIGA 10.5.1. IBM-T-10.5_lease_FASB_IASB_compliance_enhancements. This is the object label given to objects delivered with this particular TRIRIGA release. IBM-TAP:3.5.1. This is the object label given to TRIRIGA Application Platform 3.5 5.1 delivered objects. Examples of these kind of delivered objects are integration object and Esri.js. Root object label. This is the object label given to objects that existed prior to TRIRIGA 10.5.0 on upgraded environments. And then finally, object label in progress. This is the object label given to an object when it is modified. This slide shows the TRIRIGA delivered object labels as they appear on the Object Label Manager landing page. Object label definition. If you open one of these object label definitions that I just went over, the screenshot in this slide shows you what you will see. This particular screenshot shows the IBM -T:10.5.1 object label. Now I'll go over a few of these fields. The label owner field is the company identifier. So for IBM TRIRIGA, this value is IBM-T. The label version, this represents the version or release of the label, of the object label. So the value of this label is 10.5.1, and this represents TRIRIGA application version 10.5.1. The label owner and label version make up the full name of the label. In this case, IBM-T:10.5.1. Other fields to note here, generated from, this is the parent object label. Essentially, this is the most current object label prior to this label. So in this case, IBM-T:10.5.0 is used to represent that the parent version was TRIRIGA application version 10.5.0. The date applied and applied by will be more relevant for customer labels. This will be populated with details of when the object label was applied to modified objects and by who. The merged from field is used for upgrade purposes. It represents an object label that this object is merged from. For example, let's say at some point you upgrade to some future TRIRIGA release. Let's say TRIRIGA 10.5.2. Prior to upgrade, you have objects that belong to a customer label. After upgrade, a new merged label can be created to indicate these objects still need to be part of the latest customer label, which would be indicated in the generated from field. The merged from field can indicate that these objects have now also been merged with IBM application or IBM TRIRIGA 10.5.2. Please see the references slide at the end of this presentation for a link to more information and best practices regarding all these fields. Creating new object labels. As mentioned, customers will want to create their own object labels to manage their object modifications as well as any new objects. To do this, from the Object Label Manager landing page, click the Add button. Now you want to add fields into the object label, add values for the fields in the Object Label Manager definition. So for the label owner, it's best practice to use an identifier that represents your company. In this example, I just put my_company, as you see in the screenshot. For label version, enter the version. It's recommended that the first version of an object label is 1.0. Enter the parent label. This is the current relevant label on the environment. For example, if the environment is at TRIRIGA 10.5.1, then this field should be the object label IBM-T:10.5.1. Click the Create button. And then, once again, for more information and best practices around object labels, please see the link in the references slide of this presentation. Viewing objects that belong to an object label. in the Object Label Manager, when you click the the Labeled Objects tab, so when you click the Labeled Objects tab, Labeled Objects tab, you will be displayed all the objects that belong to the object label. The first column shows the object type. So whether it's a module, business object, form, query, workflow, or UX metadata component. Note that for UX metadata, only the UX metadata components where the snapshot button is enabled will show on this list. So snapshots are enabled on the application, model, and web view components of UX metadata. So those are the only ones that will appear on this list. Other columns include the object name, the module of the object belongs to if applicable, the business object the object belongs to if applicable, and the date the object was modified on, and also who modified it. An example use case of viewing objects that belong to a particular label would be if you want to view all modified objects that are not yet part of a customer label. To do this, you would open the Object Label in Progress Object Label definition from the Object Label Manager page. Click the Labeled Objects tab, and you will see all the modified objects on this environment not yet belonging to a customer object label. So in this slide, you can see I modified 3 objects, the tri-property business object, the tri-property form, and the tri-property workflow. Previously, the only way you would know if an object has been modified or what label it belongs to was to open the individual object definition. So now, all you need to do is click the Labeled Objects tab, and any object that's part of the label will show up here. Notice also with this tab selected, there's an export link. This allows you to export the list of objects belonging to the object label to a CSV file. When you click export, you'll be given the option to either wait and save the file locally, or you can choose to handle the process in the background. If the background option is selected, the file will be written to the server in the user file object label directory. It will be given the name of the object label.csv. So in this example, it will be object label in progress 0.0.csv. And here's an example of the CSV file. Notice it contains the same columns as the columns back on the Object Label Manager with the Labeled Objects tab selected. So the columns are object type, object name, module name, DO name, modified date, and modified by. Applying object labels to modified objects. So when the customer is satisfied with all of their modifications, they can convert all objects with the object label in progress object label to their new label. So basically, this is all the objects that they modified that are not yet part of an object label. They'll have the object label in progress label. So to do this, we'll open up the object label definition, the customer created object label definition. The example I've been using so far in this presentation is my_company 1.0. That's the object label definition that we created earlier in the previous screenshot. When I click Apply Label to In Progress Objects button, basically all the objects that were previously in progress will now be given this object label. you will notice the date applied and applied by fields now have values. Basically, the date applied indicates that when this object label was applied, and then who applied it. I was logged in as a system user when I applied this label. So now, if you click the Labeled Objects tab, you will now see all the objects with this label. So you will notice the 3 objects that you now see with this new my_company 1.0 label. These were the same 3 objects that were previously had the object label and progress object label. Additionally, when you go to the individual object definition, you will see that this label now belongs, or that the object now belongs to this object label. So if you went to the tri-property business object definition, you will now see that the object label for that business object is my_company 1.0. So the comparison report link, comparing objects with the object label manager. This is another feature of the object label manager. So when the labeled objects tab is selected, you will now see the comparison report link. Clicking this link downloads a report that shows the modifications to every object that belongs to this object label, since the previous object label they belong to. Using the tri-property example again, the comparison report will show the structural differences between tri-property in this object label compared to the structure of tri-property on its previous label, which was IBM -T:10.5.1. So when you click the comparison report link, you will be given the option to either wait and save the file locally, or you can choose to handle the process in the background. If the background option is selected, the file will be written to the server in the user file object label directory. It will be given the name of the object label.txt. So in this example, it will be my_company 1.0.txt. And this slide shows a snippet from the comparison report. One thing to note, it does take on the same structure as the object migration comparison report, if you're familiar with that. So in this snippet, you'll see a new field called CST, some new field, was added to both the tri-property business object and the tri-property form with this latest, within the my_company 1.0 object label. Deleting an object label. If an object label is no longer needed, you can choose to delete it. This can be done from the Object Label Manager definition by selecting More and clicking Delete. So when Cleanup Agent runs, any objects that belong to this deleted object label will be given the Object Label in Progress label. One thing to note, please do not delete TRIRIGA delivered object labels. So at App Server Startup, there's logic in place that does make sure all TRIRIGA delivered object labels exist and have not been removed. The TRIRIGA delivered object labels will be rebuilt if the system detects they do not exist at App Server Startup time. However, all the objects that were once part of the label will now be in the in-progress state and no longer associated to that TRIRIGA delivered label. So please do not delete TRIRIGA delivered object labels. Object labels in object migration. So there are a few new features added to object migration that are related to object labels. Object migration packages will automatically include the object label definition for each object in the package. This ensures objects and their object labels are correctly migrated to target environments. Note that imported objects in the target environment will always be given the object that is defined in the package for that object. So for example, when using what I have done so far in this presentation, if I created a package that contains the tri-property business object, at the time of export, the my_company 1.0 object label definition will also be included in the package. In the imported environment, tri-property will be given the my_company 1.0 object label. Other features include you can manually include an object label definition to an object migration package. Object migration also has a feature to search for all objects belonging to an object label when creating a package, and object migration validation now warns if an import package will overwrite customer modifications. As mentioned, you can manually add an object label to a package to migrate an object label to a target environment. At time of import, the object label definition will overwrite the object label definition in the target environment if it exists, but it will not affect any objects belonging to that object label. Existing objects on the target environment that belong to that object label will still belong to that object label. So to do this, select Object Label from the Object Type drop-down list in the Object Finder and click Search. Select the object label you want to add to the package and click Add Selected Objects. And now you will see it in the package. So, as mentioned earlier, the object label will automatically get added to the object migration package at time of export for all objects in the package, if the object label definition is not manually included in the package. Unlike object labels that are manually added to the package, object labels that are automatically added to the package will not overwrite the object label definition on the target environment at time of import if it already exists on the target environment. This is more of a safety net just to ensure that the object label is on the target environment. So, Object Migration Object Finder also allows you to search for every object that belongs to an object label. To do this, select the object label from the object label that you want to search from the object label drop-down, and then click Search. The search results will show all objects belonging to that object label. This is useful if you want to create a package containing only the objects from a particular object label. You can also limit the search to objects of a specific type. For example, select the object type business object and select the desired object label from the object label dropdown. Click Search, and now every business object belonging to that object label will appear in the search results. Validation. So object migration validation process has been enhanced to warn users if the import package contains objects that have been modified on the target environment. So for example, if you have objects on the target environment that have the in-progress object label or a customer label, and the import package contains those objects, the validation process will warn you that modified objects will be overwritten, and the warning will also show on each object in the package having this scenario. you try to import a package without first validating it, a warning message will display that indicates the potential for modified objects, that there's a potential for modified objects to be overwritten on import. You can click the Here link to ignore the message and proceed with the import. So now I just want to go over some important information regarding Object Label Manager. So Object Label Cache. Note that if a module, business object, form, query, workflow, or UX metadata is deleted, it will still show up when viewing the labeled objects belonging to an object label. It will show up basically until Cleanup Agent runs. So Cleanup Agent will rebuild the Object Label cache. You can also manually clear Object Label cache from the Cache Manager in the TRIRIGA Admin Console. TRIRIGA delivered object labels. Some important information about those. As mentioned, please do not, or actually, let's start with, please do not apply labels to in-progress objects. Don't click that button for TRIRIGA delivered object labels. This will incorrectly label objects not delivered by TRIRIGA. And then what I mentioned earlier is do not delete TRIRIGA delivered object labels. And then finally, this slide comes from the important information section in the release notes. It's related to upgrades in Platform 3.5.0 and 3.5.0.1 involving the import of pre-10.5 application packages. Essentially, in order to ensure pre-10.5 objects are labeled correctly when upgrading to Platform 3.5.1, do not delete the packages or notifications. So don't delete the object migration packages or notifications related to those pre-10.5 application packages. So that covers the Object Label Manager feature. Now we'll go into object revisioning. So for an introduction to object revisioning, object revisioning is the mechanism to save the history of TRIRIGA metadata object definitions such as modules, business objects, queries, forms. Whenever an object is published or saved, a revision is automatically created. Revisions make it possible to, what we have in basically in Application Platform 3.5.1, it gives you the capability to audit objects. So when were objects changed, who changed the objects, and what are changed in objects. Not available in Application Platform 3.5.1, but mentioned here because it is this is kind of the groundwork for the possibility to basically view objects exactly as they used to be and also roll back to previous versions of objects. But once again, what I mentioned there is not available in Application Platform 3.5.1. So combined with object labeling, revisioning helps to improve TRIRIGA application upgrade process. What objects are revisioned? So workflows have always been revisioned. UX Metadata revisioning was introduced in TRIRIGA Application Platform 3.5.0. UX Metadata revisions are also called snapshots. TRIRIGA Application Platform 3.5.1 added revisioning to the following objects. So we now revision business objects, queries, forms, and modules. So for some technical background to how revisions for modules, business objects, forms, and queries are created, this involves a set of _V tables that are created for these objects, specifically designed to store revision data. They are structurally equivalent to the main tables defining these objects. So these tables are generated during the 3.5.1 platform upgrade process. They are also delivered automatically with new installs. So the revisions will start with an initial version of 1, representing the current definition for each module, business object, form, and query on the database. So the initial revision will be revision 1. When an object is published, saved, or object migration is imported, a revision is created that is equivalent to what the object is after the change. And since object migration import runs in 2 passes, two revisions will be created for the imported objects. When are objects revisioned? As mentioned previously, workflow revisioning has been available for several releases, and its functionality remains unchanged. For UX Metadata, a revision is created when the snapshot button is clicked. The snapshot button is available on application, model, and web view components of UX Metadata. And this functionality has been around since platform 3.5.0. For business objects, a revision happens when the business object is published. For queries, a revision happens when the save and close button is clicked. For forms, a revision happens when the form is published. For modules, a revision happens when the module is modified and saved. And then all of the above mentioned objects are also revisioned when imported by object migration. Revision numbers. A revision number is an internally generated integer that uniquely identifies a revision of an object instance. Revision numbers are displayed in the following areas. For business objects, they're displayed on the business objects property panel in Data Modeler. For queries, they're displayed when the general tab is selected in Report Manager. For forms, they're displayed in the Form Properties panel of the Form Builder. For modules, they're displayed in the Module Properties panel of the module definition on Data Modeler. For workflows, they are displayed in the Workflow Builder, and now additionally displayed in the Properties panel of the Start Task of a workflow. And for UX Metadata, they are displayed in the System tab of the UX Metadata component. So this slide shows the revision number on the module definition. Here you can see it's revision 3 of this tri-budget module in the screenshot. So for business objects, they're displayed on the business object definition. For forms, they're displayed on the Properties panel in Form Builder. For queries, they're displayed on the general when the general tab is selected in the query definition in Report Manager. And here you can see this particular query is at revision 4. And now for workflows, when you open the Start task, you will also see the revision number there. So for this particular workflow, it's revision 24. And then for UX Metadata, when the System tab is selected on the particular UX Metadata component, you will see it's called a snapshot for UX Metadata, and you'll see here the snapshot is 2. Snapshot is essentially the same thing as revision. So revision lists. A revision list is a screen that displays all revisions of an object. It displays the following information: the object name, revision number, modified date, modified by, and the object label applied to that particular revision of the object. The list is descending order based on revision number. A few things to note: as previously mentioned, currently you can view the revision list and compare between the different versions, but opening a previous revision or rolling back to a previous revision is not supported in Platform 3.5.1. Also note, for workflows, the first revision is revision 0. For modules, business objects, forms, queries, and UX metadata, the first revision is revision 1. Revision lists can be accessed in the following way. So for business object, you can use the list all revisions action in Data Modeler, or use the tool, or navigate the tools list all BO revisions links in Data Modeler. For queries, the revisions tab in Report Manager. For forms, the revisions tab in the Form Builder. For modules, the list all revisions action in Data Modeler. For workflows, the list all revisions action in the Workflow Builder. This is existing functionality. The object label column has been added to this existing revision list, and that was added in TRIRIGA Application Platform 3.5.1. And then for UX metadata, the revision list is not yet available as of TRIRIGA Application Platform 3.5.1. So in this screenshot, you can see the revision list for a module, and it's accessed by the revision list link on the module definition in Data Modeler. And the screenshot shows, this module has 3 revisions, and they're listed out. And the information, the high-level information about each revision is listed here. So this is the revision list for business object. This is the tri-property business object we've been modifying throughout this presentation. The revision list link on the business object definition can be used to access this, or as mentioned previously, in Data Modeler, you can use the tool, you can navigate the tools, list all BO revisions. And then form revisions are accessed by the revisions tab for the form in Form Builder. And then for query revisions, this can be accessed by the revisions tab on within the query definition on Report Manager. So for revision comparisons provide the capability to view differences between 2 revisions of an object. So to do this, you would select exactly 2 revisions in a revision list and click the Compare action. The result will be displayed underneath the revision. The results contain arrow buttons to change the size of the results to either full screen, and you can also use the Clear button so the results can be cleared. The layout of the comparison results takes on a similar layout as the existing Object Migration Compare tool. The comparison results can be exported into a TXT file using the Export button. And then also note that comparison for revisions is not implemented for workflows. So this slide gives an example of what the comparison between 2 revisions looks like. Once again, we're using the tri-property business object here, and we're comparing revision 7 to revision 4. So you will notice in this screenshot, revision 4 is part of the my_company:1.0 label we created earlier, but since the time I clicked the apply, since the time I applied that label to this object, I've also made 3 new modifications. So you could see revision 5, revision 6, and revision 7 here. And here I chose to compare revision 7 to revision 4, and then below the results you see the comparison report. And as mentioned, this does take on a similar format as the existing comparison functionality in object migration. And then you'll also see the export link at the bottom of this if you want to export these results to a TXT file. You would click that link. So also added in platform version 3.5.1 is UX Metadata comparison in the object migration tool. So this functionality has been added, but please note that web view files, basically the file attachments, web view file attachments such as HTML and CSS files are not compared. To run this comparison report in the object migration tool, expand and select the specific UX metadata component, such as an application from the object migration navigation tree, and then on the objects window, select one or more objects and click compare. The compare logic will navigate through all the components making up the application, such as models, data sources, data source fields, etc. It will report any differences between the import package and what is currently defined on the target environment. So a screenshot here, you will notice that the comparison report basically shows every difference within this particular application, drilling down into all the different components of the application. So you can see at the highest level you have application and model and view, model, and then you can see some data source differences, and then for web view you can see some web view differences. There's a difference on the web view file record, but please note that the comparison only can report on the fields that make up the UX metadata component definition. It does not compare file attachments. So the HTML and CSS files that are part of the web view file UX metadata component will not be compared. You can also run the comparison from any UX metadata component in the import package. So for example, you can run compare from a model, and then by doing this, the comparison will not contain all the differences for the entire application. It will be confined to the model and its dependent components such as models, data sources, data source fields, etc. So you would do that if you just want a more confined set of comparison results for a particular UX metadata component. Note here that UX metadata revision comparison is not available in TRIRIGA Application Platform 3.5.1. So the only comparison that we support with UX metadata is what we've added to the object migration tool, which is depicted on this slide. This slide discusses comparison enhancements made to Platform 3.5.1. There was a focus in 3.5.1 to ensure all properties of an object are appropriately compared. We just wanted to make sure that the existing comparison tools, that we were actually returning a complete list of comparison results for all the properties on these objects. And then this slide details the specific properties that are now compared but weren't compared in previous platform releases. So for resources, and this is basically the references slide I mentioned earlier. So for links and to documentation, best practices, and other important information, this will all be maintained on the Object Labels and Revisions wiki. So, and this slide contains a link to that location. This concludes the object label and object revisioning presentation. Thank you for viewing.